So Sid, one of the things that we talked about early on in our process with you is really driving towards this continuous business cycle, right? And where we see it as an organization, and as we talked about it, is that we wanted to start with the planning, and where you're doing the planning of what that's going to be from a company perspective or a project perspective. Then you move on into the execution phase, where you're actually delivering the service and the activities that your organization does. Then our measurement is where we're actually capturing the data and measuring the results of our execution. And then we get into the analysis phase, where you're actually analyzing how you compared against your plan, what worked, what didn't work, and then you start that cycle again. And I think what becomes key around this is really driving that cycle, whether it's being done on a monthly basis, a weekly basis, but something that is more continuous in nature than what we historically have seen organizations do, where they do this once a year or at the end of a project. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the steps, how you guys worked within these planning, execute, measure, and analyze steps, and where you guys wanted to go as an organization?
What had happened over time is that we've gotten close to 100 consultants, and the ability to plan their schedules and the projects and clients over an extended period of time was unmanageable. And we needed a system that would allow us to, on the planning side, easily track all of our resources for an extended period of time. And as I mentioned earlier, we just couldn't do that with our prior system. Once we assigned our resources and we started the engagement, we really needed a better way to manage those engagements in respect to where we stood against budget, revenue recognition, which is a very big issue and complex in our industry, and then knowing how much and when to bill. And before, it was really a manual system. The reporting we previously had was limited, and we really needed information based on projects, rolling up the projects by client, our results by specific departments, and we also provided incentives to our employees based on the results of their particular departments. And before, we were doing all of that in Excel, which was a tremendous amount of work, and we've been able to automate that process. And then finally, we want to measure, understand the financial results of our business, and being able to slice and dice that data based on the complexity of our business. And again, it was a monumental task in our old system, and now we have a very effective and efficient way to report and analyze the data that's being produced by our organization.
Well, and Sid, I think what you pointed out here is what we see a lot in a lot of professional services-based organizations is that the planning phase, you're able to manage that, right? What is our project budgets going to be? What are we trying to accomplish on it? And then the execution phase is what do we need? How do we need to deliver it? What people are being scheduled? It did sound like you have a little bit of challenge around the scheduling side of it, but where things start becoming more challenging as you guys moved up to 100-based consultants is the ability to measure properly or effectively or timely, and then to do the analysis that came across. And so that's typically where we see the breakdown is the planning and the execution phase tend to get accomplished. But when you want to start measuring and analyzing it, that became where the challenge was. And then the ability to do the velocity on a continual basis because of the extra workload that was accomplished in spreadsheets, that started breaking down that continuous cycle. And so our focus with you was to connect that execution and measurement phase that ultimately led to the analysis, and that allowed the circle or the wheel to start spinning again. Is that a fair recap of kind of what you said?
It is, and the other big difference is that we were getting a lot of the information on a monthly basis on our previous system, because we had to go through a process where we exported the data out of Harvest, went through a very complicated Excel spreadsheet to do all of our allocations. And then at that point, we were able to break out the different costs by department, and project and client. And it was a very labor intensive process. Now, all of that is available whenever we want, as long as our timesheets have been properly inputted and brought into Intact, we can run these reports at any time. So it's not only getting the right information, it's getting the right information at the right time.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, is they have to all be connected. And in order for that wheel to spin quickly, you need to be able to move that information quickly and get it into the people's hands that can make the decision. So thank you for kind of sharing those steps that you guys went through as your continuous business cycle.